Hola, gracias por estar con nosotros con otra edición de Contigo en la Comunidad. Vamos a pasar por uno de los momentos que tuvimos en el foro de la semana pasada, donde pudimos ver los candidatos republicanos y demócratas hablar un poquito de los temas que le afectan a los hispanos hoy en día en Florida y en Jacksonville.
And thank you for being here. So we're going to do the same thing again. We'll start out with District 15, and then we'll move on to 16. So our first candidate for District 15 is Wynham Duggan. So Mr. Duggan is a member of Rogers Tower. He's part of the board of directors and a former chair of the firm's governmental and regulatory law department. He represents individuals, businesses, and nonprofits. His practice areas include land use, zoning, permitting, developments of regional impacts, concurrency approvals, governmental relations, general legislative matters, special acts of Florida legislation, J-bills, charters, amendments, property taxations, pretty much anything you want, sounds like, right? So, Mr. Wynham was born in Jacksonville. He's a fifth-generation Floridian, a graduate of the United States Marine Corps Officer Candidate School, and was commissioned as a Marine officer. Next to him, we have Ms. Dr. Tracy Polson, also a candidate for House District 15. Ms. Polson is a licensed clinical social worker with more than 2 decades of experience working with children, parents, and families. Dr. Polson is a recognized expert in her field. She put herself through college, earning her doctorate degree, and has taught and guided young people at several universities, including the University of North Florida. She knows firsthand the enormous high stakes of healthcare for families. As a breast cancer survivor herself, she and her family have lived through the fears and uncertainty of what battling cancer means, including assessing and paying for those treatments. So Dr. Tracy Polson is running as a candidate for Florida House State of Representatives, District 15. We begin with questions for Mr. Wynham. Your first question, what do you plan to do in Tallahassee to improve the lives of veterans in the First Coast?
Thank you, Betsy. So obviously we have an enormous military presence here in Jacksonville, and particularly in House District 15. And it's, of course, incumbent upon us to serve those who have served and sacrificed for us. So I would look for ways to enhance and expand those programs that are already in place to serve our veterans, like the Veterans Treatment Courts that have been so effective here in the 4th Judicial Circuit, Veterans Florida, a clearinghouse for resources available to all veterans throughout the state, and just at a higher level, not just for veterans, but particularly impactful for veterans, is ways to expand mental health funding for all of our citizens, but particularly to help those members, first responders and veterans who suffer from the effects of their service. And I have a plan to grow and expand that mental health funding, and I look forward to implementing it.
Very good, thank you. Your second question, what challenges do you see in Florida's K-12 educational system? And if elected, what would you do to address those challenges?
Thank you. So one thing that I think is incumbent upon us is to bring back and expand opportunities for vocational and technical training in junior highs and high schools. I think we went way too far the other way to eliminate that. I can give you one anecdote. I had a young man who was going to work for me on the campaign this summer. He is 18, graduated high school. Then he got into a pipe fitter apprenticeship training program here in town with one of our local manufacturers. And after 9 weeks, he has a job, he has a skill set, he has a career path. He's making starting out at $20 an hour. And ultimately, he may be ready to go on to higher education, and he can do that out of his earnings. He can save money so he doesn't have to take on a bunch of debt. So that is something I think it's incumbent upon us to provide as a resource for all of our students. There's not a one-size-fits-all path to success in life, and I would like to see duplicate the dual enrollment we have with our state college system for a skilled trade certificate.
Very good. Thank you so much. All right, next is Dr. Tracy Polson. Your first question. Do you support Andrew Gillum's proposal of raising corporate tax? And if so, why?
So thank you, Betsy. Thank you, Tomas. Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening. It's a pleasure to have an opportunity to answer some of these questions. So first, I would have to see the actual legislation before I would decide whether or not that I would support it. But I think it's important for each of you to know this fact, and I wrote it down so that I would have it accurately. In Florida, 97% of businesses do not pay a corporate tax. I want to make sure everybody's paying attention. 97% of businesses. My understanding is that once Andrew Gillum is elected governor, he wants to raise the corporate tax from 5.5% to 7.75%. And why he wants to do that is he wants to invest $1 billion into public education. That I am in favor of. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, your second question. In your opinion, what is the best way to promote economic stability for Floridians?
So as Betsy mentioned in my introduction, I am the first person in my family to graduate from college, much less get a graduate degree and a PhD. That education has allowed me to own my own business and to do things, quite frankly, that many members of my family have not been able to do. There is a direct relationship between really high quality public education and the economy. We need early childhood education that is research driven, that's high quality, that continues through high school, that will allow students to choose for themselves whether or not they go to college, but most of all prepares them for an innovative workforce. We need to be training our students very early ages to compete in the 21st and 22nd century. Thank you.
Thank you so much.